Welcome to our Development Review Commission for February 26, 2019. We have a relatively short agenda tonight, and we thank you for joining us. First, let me introduce who we have with us here tonight. To my far left, we have Steve Abramson, we have Dalton Guerra, we are joined by Commissioner Michelle Schwartz, we have Commissioner Andrew Johnson, we have Commissioner Phil Amorosi, we have Commissioner Sumners. I am Chairman David Lyon. To my right is Vice Chair Mike DiDomenico, and we have Commissioner Don Casano and Commissioner Thomas Brown. Let me read our opening preamble here. The Development Review Commission is created to hold, oh, wait, I stopped it. See, I forget something every time and I have to catch myself. So I stopped at Commissioner Brown. We also have with us Mr. Christopher Ray, Ms. Diana Kaminsky, Ms. Karen Stovall, Ms. Suparna Dasgupta, and in our audience we have Ryan LeVake. Okay, we got everyone. All right, so back to our preamble. The Development Review Commission is created to hold public meetings and hearings to provide analysis and recommendations to the City Council regarding general land use policies and applications where the Commission has recommendatory power, and to render final decisions on specified applications where the Commission has final decision-making power, including, but not limited to, all aspects of a proposed and future development. The Development Review Commission recognizes that the creation of a desirable environment throughout the city for residents, business, and industry is a prime requisite for the interdependence of land values, aesthetics, and good site planning by promoting harmonious, safe, attractive, and compatible development that is therefore considered to be in the best interest of public health, safety, and general welfare. On our agenda tonight, we have a couple of minor pieces of business to take care of, but shortly thereafter we're going to hear our consent agenda. There are 3 items which we have elected to put on our consent agenda, and if you were here to make comment on one of those and wish that case to be heard, please let us know. There are comment cards in the back of the room that you can fill out and hand to our city staff, and we'll make sure that you get an opportunity to hear that case and make comment. Those 3 cases that we have on consent agenda tonight are First Class Reflexology, Therapeutic Retreat, and Francis & Sons Car Wash. Is there anyone here that wishes to hear one of those cases? If not, okay, which case would you wish to hear? Okay. So we will pull Francis & Sons from the consent agenda, and we will hear that item. Anything else? Seeing none, we'll keep reflexology and retreat on consent agenda. We're going to make one other change to our lineup tonight. After we take care of our consent agenda, we're going to go ahead and hear the Grand at Papago, because one of our commissioners is on a tight timeline. We want to give her a chance to get back to some other commitments. So assuming there's no major objections, that'll be the first case that we hear. Okay? Yes. Okay, I'm getting head nods over there. All right, so now we have reviewed our study session and regular session minutes from January 22nd and haven't found any errors or corrections that we wish to make to those. So can we therefore have a motion regarding the approval of those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion for approval of the study session regular meeting of January 22nd, 2019.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Motion to approve from Commissioner Casano and seconded by Commissioner Amorosi. All those in favor by show of hands, please. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda. The 2 items on there, First Class Reflexology and Therapeutic Retreat. Can I hear a motion regarding our consent agenda, please?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion to approve from Vice Chair DiDomenico and seconded by Commissioner Scott Sumners. All those in favor by show of hands, please. And the motion passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to the Grand at Papago. One of our commissioners has elected to recuse himself from this case, and so we will therefore be graced by the presence of Commissioner Michelle Schwartz. Welcome. Ms. Stovall.
Good evening. My name is Karen Stovall, Senior Planner. Soprano. Okay. This 2.44 acre site is located on the south side of Washington Street, just east of Priest Drive, and is currently vacant. It is zoned MU4 and is within the Papago Park Center PAD. The site is Building C, identified here, and the west half of what is currently identified in the PAD as the parking garage P1. This proposal would constitute the fourth phase of the Grand at Papago Park Center. The applicant requests approval of a development plan review for a new 9-story office building and 8-level parking garage. Vehicular access to the garage is shown at 3 points, one from the north at a driveway off of Washington directly into the garage, one from the south accessed by Grand Way, and also from the east cross access within the existing parking garage. A stipulation was included in the staff report to eliminate both the driveway into the garage and the curb cut that is shown on the vacant lot 1 to the north. During study session, I provided you with revised language for that stipulation, which is stipulation number 5, that would allow the construction of the garage with no driveway at this time. But if lot 1 develops with no driveway on Washington, the applicant would be able to come back to request a DPR for a driveway that leads into the proposed garage. Blue Palo Verde and native mesquite trees exist along Washington Street, and that is part of the plant palette for the overall PAD. The developer would provide additional trees of those same species along the street frontage in Washington. The 9-story office building is 112 feet high and finished with glass and metal panels. Clear glazing is used at the first floor and for the railing surrounding the deck on the 9th floor, and blue and gray tinted glazing is used on floors 2 through 8. The garage is constructed of precast integral color concrete with 2-inch reveals to match the existing garage to the east. Clear aluminum fins oriented in a vertical direction are located on the north, south, and west elevations, which also match the fins on the garage to the east. Dark gray concrete is used to frame the parapets on the west elevation and is also used at the stairs located on the north and south sides of the structure. And a blue metal panel is also used at the stairs on the north side of the garage. On the south side of the garage. So staff has included 2 stipulations in order to address screening of both of these sets of stairs. The first one is condition number 14, which requires the applicant to provide a vertical concrete panel to screen the north stairs and concrete panels to replace the metal pipe railing. The concrete should match that used elsewhere in the garage. And the second, which is number 15, requires that the applicant provide privacy screening on the stairs on the south elevation. Screening could include metal panels, fins, or any other means that would need to be approved by the Planning Division. Staff is recommending approval of the DPR subject to conditions listed in the staff report with the modification to stipulation number 5, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions for Ms. Stovall? Commissioner Brown.
Ms. Stovall, on attachment 9, it's an amended PAD, 22nd amended PAD. I see every regular dimension, maybe 160 feet or so. There's a series of bands, and the maximum height progresses from west to east by 4 feet per band. Is that related to any architecture or to Sky Harbor?
That is, repeat the question, I'm sorry.
The 4-foot increase in height, which is not aligned with any buildings, but rather is very mathematically repetitious. Is that related to Sky Harbor or to some architectural
Just the
desire?
design and how that building heights would increase or decrease along east to west.
Okay, well, it steadily increases from one side to the other side, so I'm just asking about that because of an interest in Sky Harbor. Maybe the applicant can mention on that or comment on that further. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Thank you, Ms. Stovall. All right, we'll invite our applicant to approach and tell us about your project.
Members of the Development Review Commission, my name is Buck Yee, Principal Project Architect with Davis. Our office is over at the Hayden Ferry Lakeside office complex there. I'm here to present the Granite Papago Phase 4 Building C and then the related parking structure. Okay. Oops. Okay, that's fine. Let me just get oriented here. See how... Okay. Karen did an exceptional job identifying the site perimeters, but the site is located at the southeast corner of Priest and Washington, and two access points is one off of Washington on Papago Drive and one off of Priest on Grand Drive. There are two existing projects under construction. The east side is a residential project, and then we were the architects of the south side development of a 9-story structure and the related parking garage. The site in question is our site. It's adjacent to an existing 4-story office building and a 6-level parking garage. The proposed building that we are presenting today is a 8-level, 8-story office building with a amenity roof deck, making it 9 stories, and an expansion of the parking structure to 8 levels. The office building comprises of a composition of glass and metal skin. The elevation on the right is the north elevation that faces the parking structure. It takes on a horizontal expression with the gray glass and a silver aluminum spandrel panel. The distinctive feature of this building, if you look on the right side of the north elevation, is we canted the west elevation at a slope. West elevation is depicted on the left side. We're doing articulation with vertical aluminum mullions on the west and the east side. As we move to the south elevation, we have clear glazing at the ground floor, and then we're introducing blue butt glazed curtain wall on the south. And then you see the distinctive rooftop terrace at the top, and then that is glazed with clear glazing, as well as the mechanical penthouse, which would have the silver metallic metal accent panels. Elevation to the east has the vertical express mullions, which I'll show you some pictorials later in this presentation. Distinctive feature on the south elevation are these two two accent bands on the right side at the upper floors, which represents fins that start on the southeast corner, wraps the east facade, and then engages the vertical mullion articulation. Here's a view from the south side. The right side shows the existing 4-story office building in context with our proposed 8-story plus roof terrace office building. We're trying to use similar colors that have already been established on the project with the blue and the gray glazing. On the Washington Street side, the north elevation, you see the existing office building on the left. Its parking structure next to it. The proposed parking structure next to that on the right side of the elevation, and the 8-story office building in the background. Here are some images of what the office building would look like with the blue glazing and the articulated vertical mullions on the west side. We have the aluminum skin penthouse at the top, creates a nice canopy for the roof terrace amenity at the top. Here are some more elevations. The one in the upper right corner shows that fin articulation that I described earlier, where it wraps around the south and onto the east side. The east side does have projected aluminum mullions similar to the canted west side. The lower left elevation shows the engagement of the blue glazing as it turns the corner on the northeast corner and engages the gray glass with the silver spandrels. As we move into the parking garage, as Karen mentioned earlier, we are taking similar concrete spandrels from the existing garage, which is a white quartz aggregate precast spandrel, using it on the proposed garage. What we did do was, if you take a look at the lower left elevation, we created a picture frame of a contrasting gray precast panel that forms the parapet, the two sides, and took the expression of the vertical mullions and interplayed it within the framework of the gray frame. The elevation on the lower right shows the frame changing to a white concrete precast panel, and then we did this intentionally to create interest on that corner, the northwest corner, and help break up the mass between the existing building and the existing parking garage and our proposed parking garage. Last December, we met with this commission in a study session, and we were asked to further articulate and work with staff on how we could address the north facade facing Washington Street. Our solution to this is, what you're seeing here is the vertical depiction of the aluminum mullions that match the phase one garage, but we took it one step further and we added color. So in the gaps between the mullions, there is a play of color to create some animation to this facade. If you can imagine, as you're approaching Washington Street and going eastbound, you will see stripes of silver metallic mullions, and as you pass the garage, you will get a pop of color, and we chose to use like a cobalt blue color. Here's a depiction of what it would look like up close. At this point, I would like to address the 4 conditions of approval that Karen had mentioned earlier. The first one is condition number 4 is to install a traffic signal at the intersection of Priest and Grand Way. We will conform to this condition and install the traffic signal prior to C of O of our building. Condition number 5 has to do with the 2 driveway entries off of Washington, one to the future lot 1 and one into our parking structure. Karen had sent me the revised language of the condition, and we agree with it. Should lot 1 not use the driveway entrance off of Washington, we would reserve the right to use that entering our garage, connecting to the 3rd level of the garage. Condition 14 has to do with the northeast stair screening. And this is the current design of what we have for the northeast stair. We set it in an alcove to break up the mass between the existing parking garage and the proposed. What's being asked is to screen the stair from view. We will conform with this. If you look at the gray accent wall behind the stair, we're proposing to pull that precast wall forward so that you will see the gray wall with the stair fully screened behind. We will work with staff to come up with a common solution on this. Condition 15 has to do with the south stair. This is the picture of the current design of the south stair. The request was to provide privacy screening on the stair for the garage. What we're proposing is to do the privacy screening at the slope portions of the flight of the stair between the landings. This can be addressed by using perforated metal or even a translucent glass guardrail. And we will conform to this condition, work with staff to arrive at an agreeable solution. With that said, this concludes my presentation. This is the view from the southeast corner of what the building would look like. Thank you.
All right. So questions for Mr. Yee? Commissioner Amorosi.
Thank you, Chairman Lyon. Just a general question. I noticed that the parking garage is overparked by 350 spaces roughly, and there's 10 parking structures on site and potentially 11 structures are buildings. Is every parking structure going to be overparked, and if so, why do you need so much parking spaces?
Okay, I can answer the question regarding the proposed parking structure was driven by the tenant demands for parking. As far as the future ones, I think the future will hold that depending on the needs, or what I've been hearing is sometimes the parking needs are diminishing in the future. Those parking counts will be determined at that time, and the development of those future parking structures will follow kind of that lead.
Okay, and I want to thank you for the fins on Washington, making them blue instead of gray. That looks a lot better. And I'd even like to see the dark gray square on the west side blue rather than gray, because the west side of your building, which I like a lot, I like the fins coming off, then it would match that more. But that was my only thing, was I like the blue. I think the blue centerpiece on the south side is attractive because people would then know that's the pedestrian entry where they're supposed to go if they're at an event or if it's really crowded. I'd like to see that on the north side. I'd like to see overall more blue, whether it's hidden or exposed. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Commissioner, Vice Chair DiDomenico.
Mr. Yee, what is your understanding as to why the city staff has requested that the two, that you screen off the stairwells on the garage? What's the purpose of putting them behind cover as opposed to exposed the way the drawing showed them?
I think that's a better question for Mrs. Stovall.
They didn't explain to you why they wanted you to do it?
They did. They.
I am going to ask them too, but I
Okay.
wanted to understand what your analysis.
We
of it
thought that the
is.
open stair played up better with breaking up the masses. We set it in an alcove. The stair is fairly transparent, and it just creates a lighter feel to it. They felt the explanation given to me was that they didn't want to see the appearance of the stair on Washington Street side, and it requested that we do screening with precast. The first reaction I had is bringing that dark mass forward actually makes the garage heavier, as opposed to leaving it as currently designed with the open railing.
Which design do you prefer?
I would prefer leaving it as open railing. The stair does not communicate directly onto Washington. It communicates it's an exit stair that goes all the way down to grade, and then from there, it disperses out. So there is no direct pedestrian connection to that stair from Washington Street.
Do you feel there's any safety issues or any other operational reasons to screen it off?
I think it is more safe to have it open. One of the SEPTED requirements is visual surveillance, and that's why we had the south stair open railing. There's a security protocol at the bank that will be the tenant, and then they want to be able to visually survey who's in the parking garage and if those people are supposed to be there.
Appreciate it, thank you.
All right, other questions for Commissioner Brown?
I was thinking along the same lines because of some parking garages that I have to use in Phoenix from time to time, that the open garage actually is maybe a little likely to be better, safer in various ways. So just to repeat the question, I think you said, the general public can't get into this garage except by going through a gated, am I correct?
There is proposed parking controls for the parking garage. Yeah, but the general public that is walking along Washington Street cannot access that stair.
So when exiting, I assume you get down to grade,
Yeah.
there's a gate of some sort that you can't, there is an exit way, right?
Exiting, it is a open stairway for any of the patrons that use the parking garage. During an exit situation, there are no gates within that stair. They just transverse down to grade level and then exit off grade level.
Through a gate or exits?
There's really no gate. It's an open parking garage. You go to the entrances of the parking garage. There is a gate for vehicular control, but there's no gate for pedestrian control.
Just to pound it home, the general public can't get into a gate, into the stairwell, but when exiting, there must be a way of getting out.
Yes.
Okay. So set that aside, because I'm actually kind of supportive as well, that it actually looked pretty nice, especially the first of the two. For some reason, the second one didn't have that same, but that zigzag, I think, was pretty nice. So my only comment is looking at this image here, you can see, I believe it's realistically shown 2 office buildings in the background in addition to parking garages. And they have more, about half their facade is a solid material. I recognize one of them in particular. But this building is similar to the design in a way that you did at State Farm, which is a wall of glass, which is easier to build and hard to insulate. I know that in this state, maybe we don't have the energy codes and you can do other things to make it work, but can you discuss the energy efficiency of this much glass, how you mitigate that with our harsh sun?
How we mitigate it is that we orientated the buildings so that the shorter facades are facing east and west. We are using high performance low E glazing to address the energy code. This project is pursuing LEED certification, and we are at a certified level at this point. So sustainable features are being employed not only in the glazing, the mechanical system, but how we keep this building compact and energy efficient.
I assume that the narrow mullions on the narrow horizontal divisions on that view are the spandrel glass sections. How is that insulated relative to the, I mean, is that insulated quite well so that on the average it's not quite the heat gain that I'm scared about?
Yes, it is. The spandrel conditions on the glazing is treated just like the Vision. It's 1 inch, it's actually a 1 1/16 inch insulated glazing unit. On the spandrel, there's a batt insulation behind it to further provide additional insulation.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Summers.
Just a clarification, if we could, about the garage. I think in some of the renderings and the drawings, you're showing the new garage and the existing garage. And I thought I saw a lot of the improvements that we're talking about on the existing garage as well. So is that part of our approval here today, or no?
It is not. It is not. Let me go back. So um, the existing garage already has the vertical screening components on it. The new garage, we took that vocabulary and basically framed it within a white concrete frame and a gray concrete frame.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Yee. It's been a while since I've been by the site,
Mhm.
and when I saw it, it didn't have the vertical mullions, so appreciate it.
All right, anyone else?
Just a quick comment here, if I may say. I appreciate your coming back with the changes that we had talked about earlier regarding how this parking structure fronts onto Washington and how it fits with the rest of it. And I really appreciate that. As far as the stairwells are concerned, I do agree with the safety component. If you can see the people, you know what they're doing. If you can't see them, you have no idea what's going on behind there. And in this day and age, even if somebody were to get into that garage, it shouldn't be there. At least law enforcement or security would know who is going between floors. So that's my other comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yee. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our public comment section. If you wish to make comment on this case, you can. We can grant you 3 minutes to speak your mind. To do so, just find yourself a white card in the back of the room and fill it out and bring it up here. Is there anyone that wishes to make comment on this case? Seeing none, I will close the public comment section. So, nothing to respond to then, Mr. Yee. So let's have a commissioner conversation. What do we think of this project?
I'd just like to follow up the question that I had asked the applicant. Karen, can you just tell us that from the staff's perspective, why cover those two stairwells?
So for the stair that's on Washington, we're trying to not have the stair be the dominant architectural feature on that elevation. Screening can also provide shade to individuals who are using the stairs as they go up and down them. And lastly, and I think most importantly, it's for privacy of users who would be wearing dresses or skirts while going up those stairs so that they don't have unwanted individuals looking up their clothes.
All right.
And just to clarify, we weren't asking everything to be screened. It's those portions where you are going up and down the stairs, because as women, we do feel that, that was an important feature for our privacy purposes when you're going up and down the stairs and you have dresses on that provides that extra privacy in the railing area, because it's all right now a mesh, transparent, you can see through.
Actually, go ahead, Ms. Stovall.
I would like to add that on condition 14, 14 and 15, we met with the applicant last week. He showed us some renderings of options for screening. We thought he was going to show them tonight, but basically if number 14 is approved, we would like to have added on at the end or as otherwise approved by the planning division, so that it does give the applicant some flexibility to work with staff for screening besides those A and B identified in the condition.
All right. So actually, if I could clarify a little bit, am I to understand correctly that you do not wish or are not invested in having screening at the landings, that it's only at the flights?
So on the south elevation, the applicant showed that the flights would either have frosted glass or perforated metal. We were generally accepting of that because of their concern to be able to still see into the garage. So if they're willing to put it just at the flights of stairs, we would be amenable to that. On the north elevation on Washington, the applicant expressed a concern that doing both A and B, which would be a vertical concrete panel, and also having the pipe railing replaced with concrete railing would basically hide the stairs. They put the stairs on the exterior to create that notch to kind of break up that flat wall plane. So they had proposed doing a gray concrete panel to screen basically half of the stairs from Washington, and we would be amenable to that. I don't know if the applicant has that with him tonight to show, so maybe he could show that to you, but yeah.
All right, I guess just my feeling is if we're going to require that there's some privacy screening, I would think that we write that in such a way that users, whether they be on the stairs proper or on a landing, have their privacy protected. That is what we're talking about, correct?
Staff would prefer that both the landing and the flights of stairs be screened. We were, again, trying to be flexible with the applicant, understanding that typically the privacy issue would be more of a concern when someone's walking up and down the steps than standing on the flat landing.
All right. Well, I'll just chime in really quickly here. It's not a huge deal breaker for me either way, but if this is a condition that staff is strongly in favor of, I don't see a reason not to support some sort of perf or fritted glass or something else that has a lower transparency to it. I don't know that concrete panel is the right way to go, because I do think that does make it heavier and is maybe a little farther than we need to go to get that result. But let's hear what others have to say. Let me come to you in a second because there are other hands here first. Commissioner, let's go Commissioner Swartz. Ladies first.
Yeah, I think as far as I'm concerned, bringing that heavy panel to the front really does kind of diminish the articulation. And the concern I had originally, which I think many were addressed here, I did sit on the study session when Mr. Yee came the first time, was really creating some sort of visual interest on along Washington, because that's where most people are going to be interfacing with this building. I think a lot of the internal circulation is, going to be employees of or tenants in those buildings, but along the street, you're going to see many more people interfacing with the building. So any articulation we can keep there, I think, would be preferred. So I'd be curious to see some of the perfed metal and other materials on the Washington side versus maybe the internal side.
Okay, Commissioner Amorosi, come to you.
Thank you, Chairman Lyon. I also would prefer a more open, I don't want to see a solid concrete wall all the way down Washington. And if I'm not mistaken, I thought Mr. Yee might have said it could be a frosted glass. Could it be a blue frosted glass? I'm pushing for the blue here. But yeah, I'd rather see it more open than a solid wall.
All right, Commissioner Brown.
So along those subject lines, if you look at attachment 16 and visualize yourself in that garage, I'm going to guess that 99% of the men and women are going to use the stairwell that's near the office building. And perhaps that one should have some screening or some perf and blue glass, whatever you need. But I'm going to agree that the Washington Street side maybe is a nice breakup, and that zigzag actually looks kind of sculptural. My only other comment is that this is the fourth, I believe, building of several more, and I would hope that they were not all 90% blank glass, but we see more ribbing and more shadow and more development to that facade instead of having the wall of glass boxes that I think maybe a few people on the commission would agree are perhaps not as friendly for the people driving by. That's looking to the future. I'm just commenting that maybe a little more variety in the buildings overall would be a good idea from a master plan. Thank you.
Commissioner Kasana.
Yes, thank you. We're talking about the screening and everything else. in looking at it, the stairwell that's on Washington probably will not be used much because you're actually easier to walk through the structure and cooler in the summer to get to the elevators that are probably going to be mostly used by people rather than, especially if you're in the top, 8 floors. Yeah, not many people want to do that, especially if they're dressed for work. And so I'm not so sure that that one really is going to be a problem. I just don't see a lot of traffic on it. But if there's a way of screening it, we give some flexibility to the applicant and the staff to work that out, I'm fine. But I really just don't think it's going to be used that much.
Vice Chair DiDomenico.
My concern, I think visually for both exposed stairwells that the more exposed they are, the more attractive they are to my impression of the development. So I'd like to see them, screened in a way that doesn't hide them. My concern was more from the safety standpoint than it is than necessarily the visual aesthetic. Parking garage stairwells and building stairwells that are closed off are dangerous places. They just accumulate bad things and danger to people coming or going in off hours. Even the design of our parking garage next door here that we all use. Those stairwells, as soon as you go in them, you find yourself, late at night kind of looking over your shoulder to see who else is in there with you. So from an operations standpoint, I'd love to see them still be see-through. Maybe how about an 8-foot waterfall, blue water that cascades down and prevents, I don't know. That would be, I'd like to modify the conditions so that staff has some room to work with them.
All right, I think we're ready for a motion. If I'm wrong, we can discuss more.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to, let's see where we at here, I'm trying to find it. Make a motion to approve the Grand Phase 4 Office Building Parking Structure PL 180306 with the stipulation that the developer will work with the staff on making the least obtrusive safety structures for the stairwells.
Commissioner, and the modification to stipulation
Oh,
number,
and number 5 would also be included. Yes.
I second that.
I'm tempted to split hairs a little bit on the wording there, because I think what they have now is the least obtrusive structure possible, which is the pipe rail. Can we just all know that we mean that something that provides a little more screening than the pipe rail? Are we amenable to the condition working that way? Okay. Sorry, I was splitting hairs a little bit. All right, so we've got, all right, it's been allowed by Vice Chair DiDomenico. All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Amorosi with conditions as noted and seconded from Vice Chair DiDomenico, is that correct? All those in favor by show of hands, please. And the motion passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, so back to our regularly scheduled program. We've got Hudson Lane. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Good luck. Relief pitcher.
All right. Good evening. This property is located just west of Mill Avenue at the west end of the Hudson Lane cul-de-sac and is zoned R2. It is surrounded by railroad tracks to the west, single-family and vacant property to the north, and the hospital to the east and the south. The applicant is requesting approval of a development plan review for a new 11-unit, 2-story condominium development. The site is accessed by one driveway off the Hudson Lane cul-de-sac. Vehicle parking is provided within 2-car garages in each unit and also 12 surface parking spaces. With the Southern Pacific Railroad running along the west property line, the applicant has proposed an 8-foot-high masonry wall and trees spaced approximately 20 feet on center to buffer the homes and provide shade from the west. Desert willow trees are proposed along the street frontage, and there is a condition included to require a different tree type to better shade the public sidewalk along Hudson. The 2-story buildings are a maximum 26 feet 2 inches high and have flat roofs and parapets to screen the mechanical equipment on the roof. The elevations show exterior materials to include stucco, 8-inch plank fiber cement, and 12-inch square scored fiber cement. The applicant has agreed to replace the 12-inch scored fiber cement with masonry in order to provide a textural difference and to protect the base of the building from possible damage by vehicles at the garages. So a stipulation to that effect is included in staff's recommendation. During the study session, I gave you a revised language for stipulation number 6, which identifies 2 different color schemes for the 5 buildings. The original staff report had only identified 1 color scheme for the stucco. Staff is recommending approval of the development plan review application subject to the conditions in the staff report, including that revision to number 6, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, questions for Ms. Stovall? Commissioner Saunders.
So can you just clarify the screening on the west side for the trees? Well, I didn't quite understand why we're having to screen. There's a railroad track and a school on that side.
In order to give visual screening and a sound buffer, there is an 8-foot-high wall along the west property line and trees within what basically functions as the rear yards of those units.
Okay, I thought
It's not to benefit the railroad.
I thought it was to protect the single-family residences that are 300 feet away.
No,
I just didn't understand.
It's to screen for the proposed residences.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, Commissioner Brown.
8-foot walls need to be engineered. Can we assume that this is not dually block, but that it's going to be a solid, maybe 8-inch block?
Any wall over 7 feet in height has to have a structural engineer sign and seal the drawing. So they do
Right.
need a building permit for it. I am not aware that dually walls would meet that requirement, but I can't guarantee that.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? Thank you, Ms. Stovall. All right, so let's invite our applicant and come up here and tell us about your project.
Good evening. My name is David Timmons with David Timmons Architectural Design Studio, 2830 East Tracy Lane in Phoenix. And we appreciate the opportunity to present our project, Hudson Lane Condominiums, to your commission. I'd like you to introduce Scott Merritt, who is the designer on this project as well.
My name is Scott Merritt with Fine Line Designs, and Karen's brief description was accurate and well done. What I'd like to add is that these condominiums are designed to have a feel of a townhome or a patio home. We wanted to provide a more private entrance and get away from a tight apartment or condominium feel. After the neighborhood meetings, one of the concerns was parking. So one of the side advantages is we were able to design a very efficient site plan and include additional parking above and beyond what's required. With 2 cars in the garage, we're providing the cars some screening so we don't see those from the street. And the way the parking is designed is you won't see any of the parking from Hudson Lane. Additionally, with the site plan, we are including parking space for the bicycles in the private garages. The trash cans will be privately contained trash, so there won't be an ugly dumpster for the neighbors to see. In addition, we're providing a 2-color scheme with 6-color palette, as Karen described, with several materials, including fiber cement, board stucco, brick veneer, and we also have metal balcony and railing accent trim. The screening towards the back, in fact, the 8-foot wall is in fact an 8-inch solid block wall. In fact, all the site walls are 8-inch block walls. The individual walkways will allow easy access with the side entrance. 50% of the entrances will face a street or a common area. The vehicle circulation is designed to minimize any conflicts with pedestrians and for the trash and the fire vehicles to have clean circulation without any excess backing up. In addition, we're providing a minimum of a 15 by 26 private yard area for everybody to use. And with that, I can open it up for questions.
All right. Questions for applicant, Commissioner
Question.
Pisano.
I go back to my old roots in trash. I'm looking at your site design here, your plan, and these people are going to have actually a rollout container,
Yes.
so individual pickup. Where will that be placed? Right in front of their garage?
So it's stipulated on the site plan, and we work closely with the waste department. We are going to embed metal placards on the sidewalk with the individual unit's number. So they have the exact placement predetermined for each container.
There's ample space for the truck to get in there, but the truck is going to have probably back out.
Ample space, and we're providing a turnaround on the longer of the
two?
The units, yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Saunders.
Just a question, actually very convenient. We have the site plan that I'm asking about on the screen right now. There's a note up on the top that says underground storage tank. Just want to make sure that's water detention and not something worse.
No, that is stormwater retention.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions? Commissioner Brown.
Could you please explain or show somewhere here the 2 color schemes? I see what looks like 1 color scheme on the rendering. Am I missing something?
Yes, so there's
Oh. A and B. So I guess I'm going to complain about color a little bit, even though we're sort of laissez-faire on color because it fades and it's a matter of individuality. But most builders sort of go safe, and I would say this is kind of a muted scheme, and it just happens to be one of my favorite little streets in Tempe. It has 4 little patios, or 4 little cottages, bungalows almost, just a few 100 feet or 100 yards east of here. Any chance that the buildings could have different colors, or are you going to make them all the same kind of land, beigey, muddy? I know it's late in the game to ask such a question, and it's a marketing question.
yeah.
So I don't want to be too offensive.
I know on the computer screens, and you know, every computer has a different video card, and everything looks different. But to look at the color board is probably the best thing.
So those are
The idea was not to have a monotone facade, was to have it broken up And so each alternate building, including the garage doors, have the different color schemes. Yeah. We include several renderings, which are much closer to the colors than the actual
The perspectives on
color
attachment
drawings.
45 maybe are the, is that where we want to look?
Go right.
Okay, there's a.
I'm looking at attachment, oh, here we are.
So this is the view from Hudson Lane.
Am I seeing two color schemes there?
Yes, so straight ahead, you see the garage doors,
Okay.
more gray.
That's a nice, yeah,
And then
I
on
like
the
the garage door.
other side, it switches to the lighter color garage doors. The tower alternates different colors.
Okay, there's some nice breakup there, and of course I can kvetch and ask for more, but I think actually has some nice pleasant qualities. So the masonry they're going to substitute instead of that 12 by 12 cement,
So we've agreed to, we'll select a masonry, which is a comparable color.
will it be a veneer?
And
And when you turn the corner, it'll be a full corner. We won't see this.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Right. Other questions, comments? Commissioner Amorosi, do you have any?
My only comment is that I think it's too dense. I'd like to see Unit 110 and 111 taken out so there's more community space, since people are going to be driving right up to those units and headlights, and never a big fan of just garage door after garage door. So those are my comments.
All right, fair enough. Do you want to respond to that? It's not a question exactly, but I'll make it a question. Would you like to respond to that?
During the early stages of the site plan review, this evolved into different concepts, and we explored all different kinds of layouts. This utilized the site and the area the best. It provided not only extra space for a green area and trees and shade, but by separating the units from one triplex to 4 duplexes, it breaks it up. It gives the entry more privacy. We could have done 11 straight units, and that would have had a much worse feel. This has a patio home feel, and that's what we were trying to achieve. The density is within the zoning density, and by going 2-story and providing garages, we're limiting the amount of parking, which isn't very nice to see either.
I just think the people that are going to be living behind units 110 and 111 don't have much of a view. It's either the railroad tracks or the other structures.
Vice Chair DiDomenico.
The balconies that are provided, how usable are they? What's the size on those?
Well, they're walking balconies. They provide a pair of French doors which allow extra light, and they can open the doors. They're 4 feet deep, so it's a step balcony. It's ornamental. The space for the private area is used in the backyard, which we're providing. There's just not enough cantilever space over the required driveway to provide any more. And having a bunch of messy furniture and clothes hanging on, having a table, and I've seen sofas on some, they would be visible to everybody. So we're calling it a step-out balcony.
Commissioner Summers.
So this is a very attractive site from a location standpoint, close to the university and in the middle of Tempe and all. But it's also really close to a heavy rail line on a curve. And while we're doing an 8-foot wall and trees, 2 of the bedrooms in every unit look like they're backing up directly to this thing. So I'm just curious, how have you taken that into account in the design and tried to provide some kind of protection? I know you don't so much hear a railroad like that, you kind of feel it. So just curious how you've taken that into account.
We asked the building department what they recommend for sound control, and they responded. The thermal windows we're providing well-insulated walls on all sides of the buildings, and mature trees in the back with the 8-foot wall. Those are the major components that the building department recommended and that we're going to provide.
Thanks.
All right, well, we'll thank you then, and we'll open our public comment section then. Is there anyone from our public that wishes to make a comment on the case? Seeing none, I will close the public comment section, and we'll have our commissioner discussion. So, Commission, what do we think? Are we ready for a motion? Please.
I could talk for 10 minutes about how delighted I am to see a 2-story dwelling with pretty good space around and the public parking tucked out of view. I would say that even though it's against the railroad tracks, and maybe there might be some noise, we all know people who've lived near the tracks and they chose to live there. And overall, I think it's a very nice design. I can quibble about this and that, but really, realistically, it's one of the better schemes. And if we compare this density to what we've seen with other 3-story, repetitious rows, that we perhaps are a little disappointed. And I'm just pleased as punch to see this one come in.
Fair enough. Vice Chair DiDomenico.
I also like it. I find this to be a very comfortable design. I love the area, the scale. There's some challenges, obviously, with what you're next door or building next to. So hopefully, it's well insulated. But I like the project. I like the scale, and I like the color scheme. And I'll be voting in support. And with that in mind, I guess we might as well just put a motion out on the table.
Just before you do, I'd like to make one comment, if you don't mind. I just want to commend you. I think it's a bit of a challenge site, and the way you've laid out your site plan and your buildings is, I think, efficient without becoming overly economical. It's still a nice design.
Mr. Chair, Matt.
Commissioner Summers.
Yeah, just to jump in very quick before we have a motion, and Scott, please don't confuse my questions with any kind of criticism. This is just, we live in an urban environment, and this is a challenge that we face now and will face in the future, and I'm just curious more than anything. I really support your project. It's great.
How about that motion?
There we go. I move for the approval of Hudson Lane Condominiums PL 180192 with the stipulations and conditions of approval as outlined in our packet.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, motion to approve. Oh, Ms. Stovall.
Could we please reference in the
Stipulations.
motion the modification to stipulation number 6?
I would amend my motion to include the revision of condition of approval number 6 as was discussed in pre-session.
All right. Do I hear a second again?
Second.
All right, so motion to approve with conditions as written by staff from Vice Chair DiDomenico and seconded by Commissioner Johnson. All those in favor by show of hand, please. Opposed? None. Okay, so the motion passes 7-0. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so on to our final case. We have the car wash, Francis & Sons Car Wash.
Good evening, Chairman, Commission, Diana Kaminsky, City of Tempe Planning Department. This evening, the request for Francis & Sons Express Car Wash is for 2 different items. One is a zoning use permit to allow a car wash in the General Industrial District, and the development plan review for the design of the site plan, landscape, and elevations for the building. The site is located on the southeast corner of Hohokam and University Drives, adjacent to the new Quick Trip. It was actually a former office building that was torn down, and they replatted when the new Quick Trip went in, and this became a new vacant lot after that completion of that development. So the aerial that you see is what it looked like before demolition of the former office building when the former Quick Trip was there. It's a relatively narrow site. They're using existing drives that were established prior to the pad for the building being established. And the perimeter landscaping was put in with the Quick Trip development. The building is oriented, it's about a 4,000 square foot building that's oriented north to south. The entrance would come in off of the University Drive side, and you'd come down around and enter into the bay from the south, and then exit to the north at the university end, and then you could use the bays for the self-vacuum stations to the east side of the building. Besides the existing landscaping, the architect has provided a significant amount of additional landscape material to the site. The general industrial district only requires 10% landscape coverage. The site has 28% landscape coverage, so they're adding a lot of plants around the site and really enhancing the building footprint. The elevations are part of their standard design. I'll defer to the architect to go into the details, but they did work with us on the materials. We have two combinations of integral colored masonry, split face block, as well as stucco colors, and then the wraparounds on the buildings which project out, which are the blue color. These are the street views from University on the north and from Hohokam on the lower picture on the west. And some renderings from both of the different angles from street view. So the use permit, when staff reviewed this, the site is 1 acre, the building is about 4,000 square feet, and the use permit requirements are that it be compatible with the surrounding area and not have a significant increase to traffic within the area. As an industrial area with a gas station convenience store next door, we found that it was compatible with surrounding uses. There are no residential uses within the immediate area. There are other similar vehicular-oriented businesses within a mile or so of this site. As an office building, they actually had 50 parking spaces, so we're reducing the parking in terms of the number of vehicles that would be on the site at any one time. But of course, during peak periods, you would have more turnover of those vehicles. They're proposing operations that would vary seasonally, but roughly from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. We did not see that it contributed to a deterioration of the neighborhood. We found that it was compatible with the surrounding structures and uses, and that the applicant demonstrated through their letter of explanation and their track record that they would be able to control behavior on site with their staffing and their monitoring of the property. They are also proposing a slightly higher screen wall along University, and they've recessed the bay door to the car wash into the building so that it's more architecturally integrated and you're not seeing a bay door right at the street front. So the bay door is not only set back significantly from the street, it's actually recessed into the building, and then they have a 4-foot screen wall with additional landscaping at the street front. The conditions of approval are pretty standard. There's a few that we added based on experience with other car washes and one that's specific to this site. Number 4 is just acknowledging that the existing driveways were approved in 2016 and installed in 2017 and are not being modified with this request. And that the trees and shrubs along the street frontages be maintained in a natural form and not sheared or truncated. We've had this happen on other car wash sites. We would prefer that the landscape be maintained as they've been shown in the renderings. I did not receive any calls of inquiry or concern regarding the project, and staff is recommending approval of both the use permit and the DPR, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
All right, questions for Ms. Kaminsky? Commissioner Saunders.
How did you manage to negotiate a 60-foot landscape setback?
Well, some of the landscaping was already there, and the driveway was already established. So it was a matter of filling in the DG from where the screen wall would be required to the street front.
Somebody who walks a lot? I love that. Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Kaminsky.
Thank you.
So let's ask our applicant up.
Good evening. My name's John Riddell with John Riddell Architects, 6615 North Scottsdale Road, Suite 250 in Scottsdale. We're here tonight to present the Express Car Wash, as Diane has presented it very well. I've done several of these types of facilities, and one question that always comes up, and I usually address it right on, is the concern of noise. There is motors that generate noise, and the number one is the vacuum motors. They're large 60 horsepower motors. We house those within the building structure, part of the equipment room. They're not exposed to the outside, so they're all inside. What goes from the motors and the vacuum areas is a pipe. City of Tempe likes to see that underground. We have buried that underground, that pipe, and it pops up at each stanchion, so it is non-visible to the person there. Then you just have the small suction sound that comes from the hose itself. The other item that produces the noise is the blowers. That's what you classify as the dryers at the end of the tunnel. We have those located on the direction of the tunnel exits near the north, so those are located on the north side there in the tunnel, and it is a recess back, as Diana explained. We didn't want to see the garage door right on University, so we do have a 11-foot recess back, and then those are inside the building behind the door itself. So we've housed all the equipment inside that's noise generation, and that reduces it significantly. The circulation was more or less defined by the size of the site, the shape of the site, and with the existing driveways already installed from QT, and there the front yard, as you stated, is extra deep, but with the driveway already being established, QT put parking out in front there, but we did not require it, so we moved our screen wall back and landscaped it. We've also have our vacuum areas on the east. That's an area that's kind of tucked back behind the building that is adjacent to Quick Trip Fuels station, where they have their outside activity, so it keeps it all tucked back in there. We've used integral colored masonry. It's very, and we've also used a split face and a center score to give us a nice break and a difference in the colors of masonry. And then we've accented it with our blue stucco pop-outs. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Riddell? All right. Then we'll thank you. So now, at long last, we get to our public comment section. Please come on down. If you haven't already, when you're done, please fill out a white card and super.
If the gentleman who just spoke, could you put up Exhibit 1 on the screen, please? Okay.
So we like to give people 3 minutes. We've got some lights here that'll give you a little bit of a cue.
Exhibit Attachment 1 to the site plan that shows building. No, it looks like this. Attachment 1. Okay. I'm Ken Mann. I'm speaking for tenants on the west side of Hohokam, the buildings. With all due respect to staff, okay, I'm concerned, tenants are concerned about safety. That's the operative word, okay? With all due respect to staff, y'all assume
that there is going to be no increase in traffic, okay? There is going to be an increase. And I would submit that before you all really take this under consideration for approval, number one, you require the developer, the owner, to produce a feasibility study and the appraisal that they obtained, I'm sure they did, before they acquired the property. Or maybe QT did one and they got it. But they're not going to put up a building like this, spend all that money, even if they didn't finance it and paid just cash. But a lender's going to want an appraisal. See, what's the feasibility? How many people are going to use this thing? Over what period of time? What's the traffic count? The traffic count is going to increase. Traffic count has already increased. Accidents have likely increased. There's nothing in here about any traffic reports of accident reports. Okay. I called last week to the Traffic Bureau to try to get some information. Left a voicemail. Never heard anything back. I called, I think it's from Community Affairs, Molly. Her name was on the directory. And I got disconnected. Never picked up some phone problem. Then I went on to something else. So I don't know what you're all basing it on is, you know, what happened in the past before QT expanded, before they got, I don't know if you can't see it over here. We have right now exits. Okay. If you look at your attachment 1, okay, I'll try to hold it up here. Oops, that's a sum up. Oh, okay. Let's see, is this you? Okay. This is University here? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. University. 52nd Street, here's Hohokam, there's 52nd Street, okay? People have been making, my particular tenant I'm representing, it's been there for over 4 years, okay? Almost 5 years now, okay? They've seen numerous near accidents, okay? Traffic reports probably show accidents. People back up, people try to make a left turn off of Hohokam onto University. They try to make a left turn from the middle here onto University. They try to make a left turn from 52nd Street onto University, okay? I don't know what the actual accidents have been in the last year and what they were previously, but I'm sure that they have increased. And I'm sure near accidents have increased. I think you'll also add, after you get the feasibility study and see what they're going to show the actual count, likely count of people is going to be, you also require, if that's still acceptable to you, that there be no left turn signs put up on University so that they can't make a left turn onto University at the over here in the middle, and also off of Hohokam. When the place is busy, you have a backup of people coming out of the car wash area, because they're coming from QT right now, even though the place isn't built. They have paved road from QT all the way over to Hohokam. So they come out, and if they can't turn up there, they'll come over here to Hohokam, and there's a backup of cars coming out and then wanting to make left turns onto University.
All right. So if you could just sum up for us.
I think there's more work to be done, no offense, by staff and by the Development Review Commission before you approve this thing, to make sure that there's not going to be, I don't believe there's not going to be an increase in traffic and traffic accidents, okay? And maybe get the police involved, ask them their opinion about what it's like.
All right.
Okay? Safety
So,
is
do we
number
have
one.
any questions for our commenter?
I'm sorry?
Commissioner Amorosi.
Yes, sir. You said you work in this area, or do you live in this area?
No, I represent tenants in that area, in the mid-buildings, the strip center of office buildings immediately to the right of where this proposed car wash is going to be. The buildings on the south side of University, okay, they extend over to Hohokam. They're trying to come out onto Hohokam, and they're faced with these cars right now without the car wash. People from coming off from the QT.
I think we've heard your point. We've got
Okay,
you. We're
so-
with you.
And one other thing, though, at 52nd and University, there is a light there.
Yeah, but there's
So
no.
that helps control when people are going to turn left on the University from 52nd.
Well, except that they don't necessarily come out on 52nd. They may come in on 52nd to get into QT, but when they exit, more typically, they'll come out onto University directly at the midway point, be halfway between wherever the cutoff or the driveway exit is, between 52nd Street and Hohokam. They can exit onto University from there, and they'll make a left turn onto University. Or sometimes they'll continue, if there's a backup of cars there, they'll continue to the west over to Hohokam, and you have cars stacked up on the driveway coming out, and sometimes there's a backup over there. And for cars coming out from the buildings where my clients are on the west side, they can't get over there because you got all these cars coming out from there trying to make left turns.
Okay, we got you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, anyone else from the public wish to make comment? Seeing none, I will close the public comment section. Thank you. And we'll invite our applicant to, you're all set. Thank you. We'll invite our applicant to come back up. If you wish to respond to that comment, you certainly may.
Yes, may I introduce the owner, Jeff Francis? He would like to respond to that.
Hello, my name is Jeff Francis. I represent Francis and Sons Car Wash. We are looking to develop this particular piece here, and I'm happy to address any questions that John Riddell has not already pointed out, if there are any that arise after the comments made by the gentleman.
I guess really this is just your opportunity. If you wish to respond to what has been said in public comment, you're welcome to. Any response to that?
I really didn't hear any major concerns that haven't already been addressed with staff, with the city, with traffic engineer, civil, and all other aspects in the city. We're not adding any new drive approaches. It's all existing. The traffic that may be generated there is not going to be any more significant than what it is now. I think QT has done a great job as far as redeveloping the area, providing many points of access. I really don't see any concern there with traffic. As I said, we've worked closely with Diana, and the traffic engineers have taken a lot of consideration and all the input and integrated it into our site plan.
Vice Chair DiDomenico.
Mr. Francis, what's your estimate of the number of customers you will have per day or per week, however you estimate it there?
Sure. So it really ranges, obviously, with seasonality and peak and snowbirds and different aspects.
At its worst, give me your...
Generally 200 to 300 cars on an
And when I
average.
say worst, I mean the most traffic that it'll
Yeah.
generate,
200
which
to
is
300.
best for you, not worse.
200 to 300 cars a day is an average. Some days you may have a little more, some days you have a lot less, but as an average, 200 to 300 cars.
And tell me how that peaks throughout the day.
And I don't know this particular area as far as traffic patterns, as far as people going to work and exiting, but I would assume usually general traffic patterns are in the morning is not very busy. In the afternoons, we tend to see a little bit of an increase. At times, if we're on the way going home, we may see a little bit of an increase in the volumes, but it generally slow in the morning until about 10 o'clock. It picks up and it dies down again about 5 or 6 o'clock. And in the evening, it's those people that go home, eat dinner, come back, and want to just not deal with the traffic, if you will, or the activity at the wash, that they come in the evening hours. Therefore, we stay a little bit later. It gives us a chance to clean up the facility on the slow hours, also have a presence there, make sure everything is safe and secure around us.
And prior to the buildings that were raised, what's your impression of the previous use of this land before it was a dirt lot? It was an office building?
It was an office building, as that before and after picture depicts. Yes, it was an office, and there was a QT there. So what they did is they redeveloped that whole area moved their operations closer to 52nd and University, which then created this small piece of property that is really smaller than what we really like to see in our projects, but that is what's available, and we try to work with what is there. And
Thank you.
my pleasure.
Commissioner Brown.
Mr. Francis, I see, I think 27 vacuum stations on the east
I believe
side.
that's accurate, yeah.
I confess I'm not a great user of car washes. My car needs to be washed. But what's the ratio? I mean, it seems like maybe that's a high number. Of course, you don't mind if there's empty spaces, as long as you're. Here's my real question: Do you have a great objection if the neighbors come and vacuum their car without going through the car wash? I think it happens quite commonly.
Everyone is welcome to come in and vacuum their cars. They don't have to buy a car wash. We're here to service the community, and we don't know that every single vacuum is going to be full. We'd like to see it, but I don't know that it happens. It's no different than most businesses where you want to design the business so that you can accommodate your peak hours, and therefore those number of vacuums tend to come in handy when customers are, have the ability to use those.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, any more questions for our applicant? We will thank you then.
Thank you very much.
All right, commissioners, what do you think?
Chair.
Commissioner Amorosi.
Thank you, Chairman Lyon. I just want to thank the owner for responding to my question about the sustainability of your car wash and the recycling of all the water and reclamation. I thought that was real nice. I like to see that kind of stuff with
Absolutely.
car washes.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Other comments? Do we hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Casano.
I make a motion of approval on use permit and development plan review for Francis Sons Express Car Wash, case PL 180353. Motion for approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. We've got a motion on the table from Commissioner Casano and seconded from Commissioner Amorosi, but I just wanted to address our public for a second. You took the time to come down and make comments, so I feel like I ought to make some response. Thank you for coming and expressing your concerns. We see a fair number of cases along busy thoroughfares, and a great example would be the Burger King and Fry's fuel stop that went in on now you're getting me confused. Is it Baseline or is it on Baseline? Okay, I've heard various things. Yeah, and there were a lot of people that said, we think this is going to increase traffic a lot. And we had a traffic engineer come and explain to us that you'd have to be crazy to decide to go to that Burger King during rush hour. In fact, what's more likely to happen is people that are already on the road say, this is insane, I hate sitting in traffic, I'm going to get a burger. And they pull off. And so in a lot of cases, these places actually ameliorate the roughest amounts of traffic very slightly. And it's not very likely that anyone's going to choose to go here as a destination at any time when traffic is heavy. So I appreciate concern for safety and traffic. We do have traffic engineering look at these cases, and our city staff is diligent about considering such things. I hope you understand that we do consider those things, and there are reasons that we feel like this is generally acceptable when we feel it is acceptable. So having said that, we do have a motion to approve. Motion from Commissioner Casano and seconded by Commissioner Amorosi, correct? All those in favor by show of hands, please. Opposed, if any? Okay, the motion passes 7-0, and we thank you all for your attendance.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any staff updates or announcements?
Chairman and members of the commission, for March 12th agenda, we currently have a preliminary plat for the level, the preliminary subdivision plat. You saw that project, the PAD DPR, come to you in November of last year, so they are now platting the site for the development. There is a development plan review for Barrio Queen. it's going to be at the Tempe Marketplace. There is a request for the continuation of the ADOT wireless facility. If you remember that, that was continued to a date specific from February 12th to March 12th. So that is again back on the agenda. We also have a use permit, I guess a couple of use permits and a development plan review for a human being location for a restaurant for a human being that's on 1602 North Scottsdale Road. And we also have a request for a use permit standard to reduce the required front yard setback from 35 feet to 28 feet for the Swindle residents at 1527 East Knox Road. Those are the agenda for the next meeting.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you.